Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. We're going to talk about tips and tricks in editing for Pyramix. Not necessarily only editing, but this is, I think, the main focus. Now, if you have questions, precise questions about things you would like to see or to understand or to clarify, do not hesitate to use the chat, please. I will follow and try to answer as well or as good as possible to your message. Thank you very much for posting them. And I'm gonna make myself much smaller so that you have a better view of the screen like this. And going back to here, there we go. Good. So I made a little, well, no, it's not a scenario, but I pointed out or I written down a few things that I want to show you that I think are relevant. But then, of course, please ask your questions. That's no problem about it. Good. So the first thing is how to select things and how to differentiate clips and region. So just for the idea or the concept is that here I have a monoclip and here I have a multi-track clip, and just clicking on that clicks or selects the entire numbers of clips because they're clip grouped together. Why that? Because when I imported that, when I drag and drop it, it's one file. Or when I record it, I record 6 tracks in that case. So this is why they're grouped together. If I want to ungroup them, I go to clip. And obviously I have group and ungroup highlighted because it's selected. If I just select a single clip, I won't be able to do that because I cannot group or ungroup one single clip. So now I can ungroup these guys and I can obviously edit them totally individually. Now the interesting thing is that, let me do an undo again. So now they grouped again. And if I would like just to move or just to change the gain of my second track of this clip group, I then can use the the modifier control click. And now this one is individual. And now I can change my gain if I want. And I click away and I click back on there and it's a group again, but with this modified length on it. The same thing, if I click it here, I could do this and now they're still together like that. But as soon as I will move it, then it puts it out of the clip, of the group, sorry. Makes sense, okay? So now those 5 are together and the other one remains on its own. Good. Now the thing is that I could go back to what I had before like this, and I could say then instead of Control Shift now, and I add this one, so I say clip group, and now I enhance my group. Each time add some things to be able to add on the top of the group. This is now my selection. If I make a complete ungroup of all of this so that they're now, I say ungroup here, so that they are now completely individual. And let's make something a bit more awkward like this. And I want to select them all. I can press Shift, and now I click here so that I make a lasso. And everything what is in this lasso will be selected. So obviously when you have a lot of small pieces, small clips, small environments to select them, this is the best way. And now I could group them together, for example, so that they stick and hold together about that. Good. Let me now go a bit further. So this was a clip selection. So in the fact that I select a clip or a clip group. And now I will select a region. So a region, I just click somewhere and while keeping the mouse pressed, I drag. So that means that now this is a selection of a part, or if I go down, it will select everything and it selects it all down here because it is clip grouped. Now this selection, obviously I can delete, I can copy, and I'm gonna paste it here, for example, and so on. But this selection also allows me at the end of the selection or the beginning of the selection horizontally, and the same thing vertically at the top of the selection, at the bottom of the selection, to basically narrow or increase the size of the selection vertically, like that, or of course horizontally. And now this selection, I could delete it, or I can just press D and I copy it, I would duplicate it, for example, because that's exactly what I want. Or, as I said before, I just delete it. Or I can make a cut, and now I can diminish the gain over it. And this is just out of my 3 tracks, because this is the selection I've done before. And how to manage this selection, I see here, I have this in point, out point, and the duration. This is really of the selection in terms of its showing that way. And this is a very interesting way of selecting things. For example, if you want to just take the 2 first track that you would like to export as an MP3 in this multi-track, you can now go select this and bring that from the bottom and bring it up. I'm used to shortcuts, so this is why sometimes I'm a bit confused, like this. And now I make a render just out of those 2 tracks into an MP3 or whatever as a guide track for someone. Now, coming to shortcuts, I have here the possibility, let me select something. I have here the possibility to say, under selection, excuse me, to say there, to move the selection up, to move it down, to grow it, or to narrow it. And obviously there are shortcuts next to it that you can modify, change, or whatever. So if I select this guy, and now I'm going to move my selection up and down, so I can now select exactly what's in here, and for example, delete it, or grow my selection. Okay, and this was the same case before when I just selected that. I could, just narrow my selection with shortcuts and just have the bit that I'm interested in and move it again if I want or whatever. That brings me a step further if I select back this and I would like to somehow dock the envelope, the gain of this purple clip. I expand it here. I now make my envelope visible and I'm going to say minus 15 dB with a fade of 250 milliseconds. And that's done. So I have now precisely on the beginning this curve there going down and going up back again there. But perhaps I would like not to do that way. I would like to do it just over the middle part here. Up. And so I move it down and I can do it over all my tracks if I want. Minus 18 dBs, and there we go. So here I don't see it because I didn't enable it visually, but it's there. Okay, so these are little tricks that I found very useful when you start to move things around and you have to find regions. Now, another thing, I've talked about those 3 indicators here. We have the 3 first ones here, which are the markers. And the markers, you can bring them in, Shift and Control to place them, or 7 and 8 to place them where the play cursor is. And now, if I press Enter over selection, it will put them straight at the top and the end of the selection. So it gives me here, obviously now exactly the same thing because I selected it, plus I put the markers. But I could say, as I said before, I make this tiny selection here, and if I say Enter, it will bring it exactly there. Now, the interesting thing, let me just perhaps erase this not to confuse you with the waveform and the envelope because it has nothing to do anymore. So now, if I go into clips, I can then select all to mark in, all between marks, and all to mark out. And this helps me a lot, for example, select all to mark in, because if I'm now at that point, and I would like, for whatever reason, erase everything what's coming before this point. So I just select it, and it selects really everything from the infinity, and it moves it away. Or I just can take it and make some insert. But I know I'm moving what I'm seeing, but I move also all the rest, so I'm not going to lose anything. And of course, the same concept applies for what's coming after the green mark. So it's before to mark in and green to mark out. Then I can also select what's in between the marker. For example, if I would like now, this is selection, and remember the selection, I can narrow it, or I can keep it through the entire timeline. And now I could, for example, insert some silence exactly about this part, or the opposite. This is selected, and I can ripple it. Okay, I have an auto crossfade edit activated. This is why it made my auto crossfade on that aspect. So I have many possibilities and functions to use it that way in terms of moving those things around. Good. I'm gonna go to the next part, and obviously I'm moving around and zooming around. You all understood that the little wheel with the Alt is about zooming. You remember the lasso with the shift, like this, but now the same idea is with the Alt. I can zoom exactly to the square I do. So if I'm here suddenly and I just want to quickly verify, oh, what's that bit there? So I can make a very tiny one, and I'm straight away in a very zoomed environment. And I can reach back with the undo zoom or the previous zoom on that aspect, or do like this, and now I'm at the end. So I can very quickly, with this functionality, to go in and out into zoom functionalities by making basically a lasso around the area I would like to zoom with. Now, an interesting thing also, what happens often, is that you would like, when you have a clip or a song, let's do it that way, you would like to say, and you have a few, and for whatever reason, you're like, okay, that's great, but I would like in one go to put them all together. So what you could do is to select them. Now I selected them as they're clip grouped individually. They select all of them straight away. And I have a functionality here called spread. Let me find it there. And this spread functionality, if I say 0, it's going to put everything straight together one after each other. But if I say now I want to spread with 3 seconds, so it's going to be precisely 3 seconds in between each of those clips. Be careful when you have an edit like this, and now I do a spread again, let's say of 2 seconds, it's going to also put 2 seconds in between each of those edits, which you not particularly want, certainly. So before doing the spread, you have to think about, in terms of edit, you have to group clip those together that you want to behave as a unity. And now I can say I want to put 5 seconds in between each of them, and it happily makes it and considers this as one unit and puts those 5 seconds in between. Same thing going back to 0 allows me to put them all together, one after each other. Great. The next step is I want to talk to you a little bit about, yes, sorry, I forgot one thing with zooms, just jumping back with the zoom. I wanted to say also, because I have this request quite regularly, I would like to have shortcuts or set up shortcuts so that I know precisely in terms of timing what I'm seeing. 1 minute or 1 second or 1 hour. So I just decide, first of all, to what preset zoom I want to work with. So let's start with 1 hour. Let's start with something big. So this is 1 hour. Here, you see up to there, boom. And now I see precisely 1 hour from the top to the end of my timeline. And I can say view, and I can say zoom, and I can set the zoom preset to number 5. This is 1 hour. And I can do the same with 1 minute. So 8:45, will go to 9:45 over here, like that. So I see now from 8:45 to 9:40, and the 9:45 is right there. So zoom preset, and this will be number 4. And now I want to see, well, 1 frame. Why not? 6 and 7. So this is roughly 40 milliseconds, as I'm in 25 frames. And I will go view, zoom, and I will store this into my number 3. My number 1 and 2, I stored it already. So Control-Alt-1 is actually from 59:20. It is, I think, 1 minute, if I remember well, or 10 seconds. This is 1 minute. That was 10 seconds. This is 1 minute. This is 1 frame. This is 1 minute 2, and this is 1 hour. Okay, so you have a very clear, and this applies now not only to this project, but as a workstation to my entire system. So once I set it up, I can very easily move from all these different criterias, and I constantly have a zoom capability that fits in there. And I can do that while I'm playing back. So let me just diminish the sound here. There we go. And now when I'm playing back, I can, let me just dim it because it is perhaps a bit too loud. There we go. And now I can go directly and have those straight away in the time I will need. Now the interesting thing is that here I don't see much because it jumps, so I could say fixed cursor while playing. And now I see the different sizes in terms of zooms of whatever I need. Okay. Now the interesting thing is that my play cursor is now fixed. Or I can say also, no, I want it to be free. So when I go really in there, it just goes further, but it won't turn the pages. And then I would like to kick it back automatically, so I can say auto return after playing. So now I play and I go back. So that helps me to properly do an edit and to bring this guy in here, for example. And now to play from there. So it jumps back each time as it is an auto return on that. Good. I'm going to move to the next step now. The next step, and again, do not hesitate to ask questions if you have any. The next step is using libraries. We have in Pyramix 2 sorts of libraries that are tremendously useful. They actually function exactly the same way. It is just a different approach, basically. I have what we call a document library. I just have to open it in my edit tabs. There we go. There it is. We have the document library and we have the global library. They function, or their functionality is exactly the same. The principle and I mean, it's a big difference, but the principal difference is the fact that the document library is, so to say, linked to the project, to this project called Tips and Tricks number 2. And so I will erase this project. I will lose things that I would have eventually put in this library. And the global library, I cannot use it like this. I have to create a library first, but then it is global. So it means many other projects, or all my other projects I will open this library, can be used as well with it. So what is a library? Let's create it first. And let's call it super library, or superlib, like this. And now I have here a folder that has been created. And this folder, first of all, if I select something like this with my lasso, I press Shift Alt. Now I see that my selection has an envelope. I click and drag to put it inside. It's actually a bin. And I can give a name to that, and I can bring this back in this project or in another project uh, with all my fades, with all my curves, with all my edit points that I had in there. This is a fantastic way, for example, to move songs around or to work in post-production because you make a multi-track atmosphere or a behind-the-scene ambience in multi-track that you know you're going to have at each time on this scene you will need it. So you store it, but then as it is not, it is totally editable afterwards. So you can refine it and change a bit and edit here and there and whatever it is required. And then we store this as a PML file, right? But we can create inside shelves. So I could rename this one here and call this one Ambi, for example. And I can create another one called, I don't know, vocal to make something, whatever, to make something. And now I can say by opening these guys into vocal, I'm gonna put this one in here, okay? And in Ambi, I'm gonna put all those smaller ones in there. Oops, didn't put it directly in. And I call this one Ambi1. So next time I'm gonna erase this because I don't need it anymore or whatever. I can search it if I have many, obviously. I can go into Ambi and drag and drop it in, or even say click, right click, place at original timecode on selected tracks, which will be this one, or on original tracks. If I say OK, because if I go to the metadata here, it tells me which tracks it was in. And this is also valuable for even those ones. I see here track 1 and 4 and 9. This is what I imported earlier on. So now I moved it there, but actually it's complete in here. And this is then the beauty of it, because you can do that for this project, and you can do that for all different types of projects. If I go even a bit further, I can now make another of these little subfolders and call this one for mixer, for example. Here, I open my Pyramix mixer, and I have what I use, for example, constantly all the time is a low cut. Let's say 90 Hertz. And now I shift Alt, click, drag, and I can store it in here. EQ 90 Hertz. Whoops. Like this, low cut. And so this is now stored. That means whenever I reach back on this EQ, it has to be a merging EQ, right? It won't work with other manufacturers. You just drag and drop and you have it there straight away. Or you have always this fantastic EQ that you know works well for guitar because there's a specific person coming in recording in the session regularly from Joe. And that means that the next time Joe comes in and wants the same guitar, you just drag and drop. And of course, you then can fine tune if you need to about this. This works even for the entire mixer. I can get it in here so that I can modify the mixer, change things, and drag it back by holding Control Alt Shift on the mixer. So now it's a bit ridiculous because I haven't made any changes. But I can do that while making changes. I should have made changes before. It would have been much more fun. There we go. It just reconstructs the same mixer, which is a bit silly. So let me make changes and you will see. So let's get here another mixer, very basic like this. So I open another mixer from my library, or I can, this is the interesting thing, I could also think or say that I have one project. I will go from recording to editing, to mixing. Here's the mixer. And instead of changing the project and whatever, or opening different templates, I just have different mixers. And I now just move around the mixer and get back to the mixer I had before. And this is a very, how can I say, very easy and cool way to work in this aspect, so that you can recall mixers that you use in and out rapidly. And again, it keeps all my plugins, the settings of those plugins, etc., etc. So that's a very nice way to work with those libraries. Um, One thing I think where those libraries are very useful also is working with Interchange. So when I work with Interchange, and let me import something, let me import an AF, for example. First of all, let's go through those options. I can create a new project. I can create a new project that shares the current project mixer. We'll come to that in a second. Or I can replace, append, and insert the AF in the existing project. So obviously, unless you know exactly what you're doing, this is a bit dangerous, because it would be nice to have just an overview of your AEF before importing it, because it might be at the wrong time code, or so it will overwrite some stuff, or it's just not what you were expecting. So create a new project that shares the current project mixer. Let me open this. It means it will open now a new project in the background or in the forefront, whatever, but not a new mixer. I use exactly the same mixer I have. The audio will play through the exact same mixer, so I don't need to fiddle around, change things, reset my monitor, or whatever it is. I just can do it straight away through the same mixer and listen with this imported AEF on another project. Do we have to wait to order sounds from a sound library in the Pyramix global library while mounting a permanent location in the media management? I'm not sure, Wesley. I mean, here already edited or needs to be like sound effects for which constantly need a various project. I'm not sure I understand your question, but let me try to answer. Let me just finish that first, and so I can show you that in a second. So, library, as it is a global library, in this project, it is there as well. And so I take it, I just shift drag in here, shift alt drag, sorry, and I call, no, it didn't do it because I didn't went enough to the bottom, and I call this AF import. So now it's there, I can play it back. It works through the same mixer. I see it's red here, it's a shared mixer. And now moving from one project to the other is actually very quick, because I have the shared mixer, I have the same mixer. And now it is here in my library, it is there, and I can bring it in either by doing a drag and drop, because I'm knowing, or perhaps I just want a little bit of it and I just bring in what I need, okay, from this AF, or post it to original timecode, of course, and so on. So this is the use of libraries in terms of getting them in and out. So Wesley, I'm using offline libraries. If this is something you want to discuss, just let me check on my drive that I have something, which is here, and sound effects library. Yes. Let me take, I don't know how much I have in here. Yeah, I don't have much, but so it's going to go fast. Sound offline library, sound effects offline library. I first have to go into the media manager, and I first have to mount once, only once, my sound effect library. And of course, this can take time. So let me just take this one and say OK and mount. So this is very small. I have, I don't know, 23 files in here and 2 dozen other files in here. So nothing much. But now I select the route folder here and I say media, create offline reference library. Recursive. So this is basically when because I can update my library. So when I make changes to my library, I can then filter out the things that have been already done. But there I want it full. I say okay, and I'm gonna store it, and I'm gonna call it offline lib sound effects, if you wish. And I say save. So now it's done. And I can unmount this as it would be now a basic start of it. And I go into my global library and I see, let me start it from scratch also so that you're not confused in here. So I will go pick up my offline sound effects library. There we go. And you see the mounting is now very quick. And I have inside basically a copy of all what is behaving and existing in my library, with also the folders and the organization of it. And I have a search tool that is recursive. So let me just check what I have here. Let's look for traffic because there is some traffic in there. So if I type traffic, it will automatically show me all the traffics that are in here that come from different folder, if any. The name of the folder is here, so if I would have different folders, they would align on the top of each other. And now, as soon as I will click on it, it will automatically mount it, and I can listen to that. Not in here, because, let me see, perhaps I made something wrong. Oh, perhaps because I messed around with mounting rules, and they are not by default in there in this project or in this system, and I would just have to enable it. Let me just see. General, mount only media folder. Yeah, that's not what I want. I think that should be fine. Yeah. Something is bugging me, and I don't know now how to check this, because it doesn't go and get it on its own. But this is a setting issue. Sorry, I just can't get my head around. But just to explain you that normally, so that you understand it, normally when I just click on it, it will automatically show it in my trimmer, and of course I can listen to it, I can edit, and then I can directly bring it into my my timeline. And this is the way I can work with an offline library, which is very useful. Sorry, I should have perhaps prepared it before, just with the proper settings. But this is something that works very nice, and it's very fast to mount it. So what I'm doing typically, working with offline libraries, sorry, this is to open, I'm gonna close it. Working with offline libraries is that I like to have different libraries, for example, with uh, 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 types of recordings. Either they're MS or multi-channel or stereo or the classic BBC and all these things that everyone has. And then I make big folders containing those different types of libraries. So I don't need to work with all the libraries all the time, because otherwise I have like 300,000 sounds or 400,000 sounds, whatever, available straight away, which can be great, but I prefer to, this is personal, to keep them separated with manufacturers or types of recording. But the day I need them all, I can need them all at the same time. Okay, let me continue now with something else I wanted to show, is that when we start to work on bigger projects, and typically when we import an AEF, for example, um, I would like to apply straight away fades, classic fades to my fades in, fades out to all, either all my clips or just part of clips. So now I made a selection here and I want to apply a fade in and a fade out straight away. So here I can right click and I have fade in and fade out. I have it also in here. This is the same menu. And then I can apply straight away a curve to them or things that I've stored in my library. So these are basically fades that I've stored previously. Go to another webinar, how to store fades. This is all explained, but I'm gonna apply this one frame fade in everywhere, and I see it changed it. And now I'm gonna do the same with the fade out. And so this is, sorry, fade out. And this is a very quick and neat way to be able to straight away put a fades, all of it, in one go. Another very nice little feature is that you could have here, let me go there, have this clip here that you might want or read and so on, but you decide, and you made some editing already. Oh, let's move it over there so that we make something clear. There we go. But you don't like the sound, whoops, you don't like the sound of the silence that is here in between. So you go pick up another recording. Yeah, why not taking that? This seems to be full of not silence as well. Well, let's take something in here. There we go. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold control and I'm going to replace the media of the clip. That means, of course, of the left track, because I'm on a mono and I take a stereo track. So it means that I can try different sound effects or different room tones or whatever it is. And I can, of course, I could cycle it through. I could do like this. And now what I'm doing is that I'm cycling through. If this would be connected, that would be much better. Now I would cycle through this part. I'm not sure we can hear much. And now this guy, let me try to get something that is really audible for you then. Okay, so you can really replace things very easily on that aspect and change it while you loop it through on that to be able to find the proper sound you would need for. Good. And just to show you, going back to the libraries, I like them, I have to say. You take your entire editing, you just select all, and you just, well, you have to open a new library or bring a new library in. There we go. That was the library from before. You just take it and just drag it in. And then you call this part whatever sound design. And so that you can then compile it with other types of work together to the final project. Okay. Let me see if I've written down something else. No, I kind of went through all I wanted to explain. So yes, if you have questions, please ask them. But I think you would have asked them earlier already. So we're gonna stop here, and tomorrow are some other webinars. So please stay tuned, stay safe as well, and see you soon for some other webinars. Have a nice evening. Bye.